Early in 43, HMS Hotspur joined the group and Commander MacKillop and I transferred in 1944 after 3.5 years and some 28 to 30 convoys, crossing the Atlantic both ways. I was appointed back to HMS Osprey to instruct AS teams of ships preparing for D-Day. Among my pupils was a young Philip Mountbatten, Lieutenant RN. By the end of March, I was appointed back to HMS Rushcutter as a tactical staff officer and to instruct and take charge of a long course for AS officers. On completion of that duty, I was appointed back to sea in command of HMAS Lismore, taking over in Melbourne in August 45. We sailed to Fremantle for boiler cleaning, etc. V-Day Day had just passed. Lismore's first task was to tow two 60-ton steel barges loaded with prefabricated steel and explosives to the BHP mine on Cockatoo Island in Yampi Sound, some 1,900 miles north. It is long, boring days, but they had to be pretty observant ones. We had to watch those barges very, very carefully, and every day we would stop and go back and inspect all the tow lines and mend them, replace them if necessary, because the wear on the tow lines was quite considerable. So we used to lower a boat at sea, and a seaboat would take about half a dozen men who would row back and have a look at the barges, their tows and the condition of the tow lines. On that particular trip, we were blessed with calm weather. Had there been really rough seas or anything like monsoonal storms or anything of that nature, we would have lost those two barges. Wouldn't have been able to hold them. An interesting PS would be on this tow of these two 60-ton barges. They were most ungainly things, just square steel boxes containing 60 tons of gelignite that BHP used for their mining, mainly. So they were rather delicate tow in a way, but very difficult to handle, towed in line as they had to be. And of course the speed of towing couldn't be more than 4.5 to 5 knots, which made it a very long trip over 1,900 miles north. This was probably the longest heavy tow undertaken by an Australian AMS. Lismore operated in the then Dutch East Indies, centred on Kopang, installing NICA, that's Netherlands Indies Civil Administration, and removing the Japanese in coordination with Timforce, commanded by Brigadier Dykes. One of the things that I remember, we had a Broken Hill proprietary engineer as a passenger from Fremantle. He was going up to Yampi Sound, and it was the only way to get there. And I've no doubt he was trying to look after his barges anyway. But I asked him in the course of conversation, what did it cost BHP to send a ton of hematite round to Whyalla? And he said 2 and 6pence. 2 and 6pence a ton. I suppose I made one big mistake there. Didn't buy BHP shares. But that was the very beginning of BHP mining in the Kimberleys. We heard about D-Day on arrival in Fremantle, of course. There was much celebration ashore there, but being at sea most of that time, and a very important thing happened, of course, for the crew. They were given leave of absence while the ship was under refit, boiler clean, etc., in Fremantle. So the crew those who lived in the eastern states took off immediately on the train back east again. Can't remember much about D-Day as a celebration in Perth or Fremantle. I was too busy doing other things, I think, getting ready for the ship to go into dock and so on. Thank you for listening to my story. It, as you'll appreciate, only covers in a quarter of an hour very short and abbreviated bits of it.